Or so to get situated. Welcome back for those that are already here to Beard Banter. I appreciate you guys for checking this out. But I have a really special one today. I actually have the CEO of Malwarebytes, Marcin, with me. And so I wanted to actually chat with him because his history and his background is actually really neat to me. You know, I started as a very organic cybersecurity person. I kind of fell into it because I was managing assets and kept getting attacked. And I feel there might be a few parallels here. So, Marcin, welcome to Beard Banter. I didn't even make you wear a fake beard, so I think I'm being very kind.
I shouldn't have shaved. I shouldn't have shaved this morning. Although there
Yeah, at
wasn't
least a
much
5
there.
o'clock shadow, right? You know?
I got a baby face, so wouldn't have been impressive. Not that impressive, at least.
It's going to be great in 30 years, though, right? Because you still look like you're 22, so it works out.
I think in 30 years I'm still gonna have patches.
Yeah, fair. Hey, listen, Marcin. So tell me about your background. I think a lot of people have used the product. I'll be honest with you. I used Malwarebytes a million times when I was in break fix mode and I was just trying to take care of something. And it was always such a great product to have around, right? And it was free, which made it very easy as well, right? But tell me about your background, Marcin. How did it all start?
Yeah, I was actually quite young, working at a tech repair shop in Chicago, and just getting into it. We were getting a bunch of computers in the door with failing hard drives, stuff like that. Saw a lot of viruses as well. This was back in 2003, and at home at a shared family computer, I downloaded a pirated video game, as all these stories go. I think it was like,
No.
yeah, Kazaa
What's the
or
statute of
LimeWire.
limitations on that? Are we good on that? Like, is
I think
this
we're
okay to
we're
talk
past
about?
that. Yeah,
Okay, all right,
my
fair.
attorneys have assured me we're past that. But I think it was Kazaa or LimeWire or Morpheus or whatever the
I was a LimeWire guy myself at the time, I think. So.
yeah, everything was an executable, even songs, right?
Right.
And so downloaded a video game, pirated it, and all of a sudden computer's acting funny. And this was back in the day when threats were pretty mundane, like
This
Bonsai
would have been
Buddy.
like the late 90s, yeah? Or something like that, maybe even
No,
2000s?
early 2000s, yeah,
Okay.
2003. So I'm talking about Bonsai Buddy, the purple gorilla jumping around your screen. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't. No, I didn't
Yeah,
get that one.
it's a real thing. Go look it up. It's a purple
That's epic.
gorilla just trying to sell you crap all day long. And I didn't, I think we were paying for an antivirus, maybe Norton or McAfee or something like that, whatever was the famous one back then.
Sure.
And it didn't stop it. It didn't fix it. It didn't stop it. I had no idea what to do. Yeah.
And
So
that was back in the days when malware would at least just tell you it was doing something, right? Like now, it's
exactly.
egress of data or ransomware or whatever it may be.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get to that, but it's scary nowadays, right? I mean, there's people's lives at risk. My story is purple gorilla. I'll stick to that.
I like it.
So didn't know what to do. I googled probably something like purple gorilla jumping around screen and
yeah.
Found a message board called spywareinfo.com. It still exists, different name,
Sure.
but I posted my question, and a woman from Belgium named Mika, I can't make this up, came to my rescue and gave me like a pamphlet of 30 pages of instructions and said, "Here, this will help you."
Yeah.
And so I followed those instructions, and the computer was back to health. And I'm like, "Well, that was pretty weird. Like, why are we paying for this product? Why am I running a bunch of crowdsourced utilities, free utilities like Hijack This?"
Yeah. Hijack This, man. You just gave me flashbacks, right? Like HJT. Did you run HJT yet?
Yep.
Okay, be careful with that. Yeah, that's so funny.
So many tools out there built by the community, and so I decided to stick around that community, and that's where Malwarebytes was born. Me and one of the co-founders of Malwarebytes, Bruce, was a forum member as well, and I said, like, I'm pretty sure I just like started building free tools and wrote to him,
Sure.
a private message on the message board and said, "Hey,
Just
do you want to build an
time that you guys got a little bit of rapport, I'm assuming, and then
he was. So I was building these little free utilities to help specific threats, and he was always like, I thought he was working for the bad guys because he always knew everything about these threats. Like,
maybe a toe in each side of the water, if you will, right?
No, it turns out he's clean. Just addicted to a bunch of Monsters and Red Bulls or whatever he was drinking at the time.
Cup, so yeah.
I'm a purebred coffee guy. And so anyway, so he and I and another co-founder, we built Malwarebytes, and it was this crowdsourced, built from the ground up product built in Visual Basic 6 at the time.
Nice.
Learned.
I'm assuming it's been recoded a couple
Oh
of times.
yes, the engineers won't let me touch the code, but
yeah.
Visual Basic 6, if the audience doesn't know, was already going out of style around that time, and I learned it from a For Dummies book, as you would learn pretty much anything. And so my first app was a calculator. My second app was Malwarebytes. That's what I like to say. So
that's fair.
And then it took off.
And it just grew. Yeah.
It just grew. I mean, these people, were so welcoming, and there were so many people needing help like me that the product helped automate and that remediation, that removal process. And that's we realized once we could remove a threat, we could have protected against it, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, because you guys moved from just kind of this removal set of tools, and I think I was along at the time. I was probably 7, but I tease, but no, I was pretty young at that time. I was probably 19 or 20, but I did use those tools quite a bit. And as you realize, like you said, that you could have prevented it. Back then, malware was not that big of a deal. Oh man, I gotta say, hey, to a couple of people real quick. So Miguel is a friend of mine. He and I've met a couple different times in the cyberspace. Fantastic guy. And then Jason Schlegel. And I don't know if you'd know Jason, but Jason's a fantastic threat researcher. He kind of grassroots, but brilliant guy at looking at stuff in the MSP community and trying to help in that space. And then Miguel had said, old malware was so annoying. I'll take old malware back, actually, if I can. Oh, Jason, and then Bryson Medlock, another amazing cybersecurity gentleman that I know well. It's false advertising. I guess I should have gone with the fake beard, Marcin. I apologize.
I'm sure I could whip something up here pretty quickly.
The funny one was Kyle Hanslevin one time, and I think whenever I don't have it up on this one right now, but Kyle put on a fake beard and a little fake bald cap and pretended to be me on a show. It was hilarious.
I think we're gonna have to do a redo, Matt.
Yeah, we might have to. So bringing us back to in the beginning. So when you first kind of started researching that and started to build Malwarebytes, how did you build it from there? I'm assuming it was just massively grassroots. I mean, if I remember correctly, it didn't charge until 8 years later or something, right? When did you guys actually sell?
Yeah, I mean, our this company's an accident, as a lot of companies are. We just wanted to help people. I just wanted to help people. I didn't want people to feel like me. Back in the day, I mean, I talk about the purple gorilla bonsai buddy, but there was another one that was pretty detrimental, a reboot worm. And at random, every 5 to 10 minutes, a counter would stop. It was just a shutdown, command in Windows, and it would reboot. And trying to solve your problem on dial-up while that thing is rebooting nonstop, and you're Googling frantically or whatever search engine was at the time. I mean, these are the threats I wish were around today, not ransomware, not nation state actors, extracting data and so on. But miss the good old days when it was a cat and mouse game and less cutthroat.
Yeah, well, and larger impact, larger privacy, challenges and concerns. One of the things that, for me, I actually feel like we're kind of in a renaissance in cybersecurity in a way, especially for the SMB. And home users, maybe another 10 years behind. But, I think that we're starting to see the education level rise around cybersecurity, that there is a problem. You let Americans start putting gasoline in trash bags and put it on the news, and you start getting, attention to the cybersecurity community, right? But tell me about, now, what do you think the state of cybersecurity is? Like, give me your thoughts on it. I actually feel like we're looking up. MSPs are starting to listen, which are your aggregators to the SMB. But what are your thoughts? I mean, you're still in the business. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's more important now than ever. And I think, a lot of spending in the industry, and that's a good thing. At the same time, is it, in the right areas? I'm not sure. I think, I've built my company all around making security as easy as possible for consumers and small businesses. That's who we focus on, because I think they're severely underserved, and managed service providers are really the heroes in this space. Why? Because they're there to help. And many of these MSPs are old break fix shops, the same type that I worked at on the corner next to the 7-Eleven at the time. I'm not making that up, and they've had to go through a transformation because break fix is turning into services, into, subscription, recurring revenue, and security is a big topic in that regard. So I don't know. I think security is getting hard. I don't think security products need to get hard. And MSPs are really the saviors here in a lot of ways.
Well, I talk about, the products kind of don't matter. And I mean, they do. That's
Yeah.
stupid. But the point being is that there's so many things that when it comes to trying to be defensible, when it comes to trying to protect your clients and reduce their risk, right? Because that's what this is. At this point, it's a risk conversation, whether that's your Steam account that my son got hacked out of, right? Or whether that is, intellectual property or things that are very valuable to your business. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the operational aspects of this, right? And having, let's say you buy Malwarebytes or you buy SentinelOne or you buy whatever it is you're buying, and you don't put it on the computer. I don't think it's very efficacious at that stage,
Yeah.
right? Right. And so you have to have good operational processes. You have to understand what you're trying to do, and we're even to the point where people aren't even talking about what the risk is and what the data cost is and what the data worth is. And, so we're starting to see MSPs operationalize those things. And I think to your point, products shouldn't be hard, right? They should be covered the breadth. They should tell you what their risks are, right? One of the challenges I think we have in our industry today is so many histrionics, right? There's so many marketing companies, and I apologize for the marketing people listening to this today, but there's so many people that say we protect everything. We could have stopped all of it if only we were using this amazing product. You're good. But I can go put a QR code on a table that I can get you with, or I can go, right? There's a
Wait,
thousand
Matt,
ways.
do you mean artificial intelligence is marketing?
Oh, AI. Yeah. No doubt. AI, machine learning and AI will solve everything, right? We're good.
I cringe. I cringe now when I hear that. It's such a buzzword in the industry.
Yeah.
Many companies don't even know what that actually means, as they develop software that's AI powered. Anyway, just a pet peeve of mine. A lot of buzzwords
No,
in
I
the
love it.
industry.
Let's go here. I'm so I'll help. Jason says no, please no. Yeah. I actually have two questions on this. So first, quick, from an AI perspective, I am not an AI researcher, but my brother is, and he's significantly smarter than me. I'll cover his ears. But you talk about that. So help me understand, help the public understand what is AI and why is it a pet peeve of yours, and when it's used in those marketing
Well,
concepts.
I think it's synonymous a lot. All right, let's take a step back because this is
Okay,
a big pet peeve of mine. Like,
I love it.
marketing and research and development are silos in many companies, right? And so the R&D team builds a great algorithm that detects, a threat. I'm just talking about endpoint specifically. Marketing will repackage that as the next best thing since sliced bread, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning.
Sure.
And while that may be truthful to some extent, as a practitioner in endpoint security, having used almost every product on the market and understand it intimately, it's repackaged signatures. It's repackaged signatures that marketed as artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is pretty bizarre. And it's just like, it doesn't do what it says on the tin. And there were companies that went out there and said, we do machine learning, we do artificial intelligence, that is how we detect threats, and you are 100% protected. I can find like 92 flaws in that sentence.
Yeah. The last statement part of it is what triggers me. Just I don't know
Yep.
if you saw that on my face, but yeah, the 100%. Yeah, bullcrap. 84
Yep.
and a quarter maybe.
Yeah, and third party testing labs will put a stamp of approval 100%. And
Oh,
if
that's
you
such
just
a
if
pill mill. Like that is so. Those third party testing labs. Like yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Look, I
That's
think they
another.
have I think they have value because somebody needs to be the authority on independent testing. But when it's easy to to manipulate or change the results through discussion, that just tells you enough. So
Yeah. Jason said, in theory, they do the machine learning in the cloud to make the quote unquote signatures. So, yeah.
and look, I think there's a really practical approach to at least machine learning in the context of malware. Looking at metadata
Sure.
of specific files, does it have a digital signature? Does it, and training on those sets, like certainly an application, one
Totally.
that's false positive prone, and you've got to mitigate all that. But there's great applications of that in Malwarebytes and other companies, not only on the endpoint side, but on the network side too. It's just the marketing stuff that really bugs me.
Yeah. How do
And
you? So this is the second part of my question. How do you fight that in your company?
uh, it's hard, right? We're trying to compete with other products, who are aggressively marketing. So
Yep.
I think, the number one thing is just being truthful with what it does. One of the things you just said, every customer call I'm on, it's always like, no, it's not 100%. Nothing is. And the vendor that tells you it's 100%, you need to run away from as fast as possible. What you need is layered defense, and
Yes.
layers like Swiss cheese are going, stacking the Swiss cheese. So
Yeah, I've seen the Swiss cheese model. It dates back to ancient history. It's fantastic, right? Your whole line up, yeah.
well, and Malwarebytes originally, not anymore, but was built to be a complement to traditional antivirus, which is why we
Yep.
did lightweight, which is why we did, layered. Anyway, we built it in such a way that it can scale and do well with another product running. But if endpoint's your only technology slash process slash anything, like you're in deep trouble, right? Because that
100%.
doesn't cut it nowadays. So
But see, that's just it. And so you just pulled my string. But I tell MSPs every day, their job is not to protect their client's network. Their job is to be defensible in how they chose to protect their client's network,
yeah.
right? And my point being is that, like you're saying, there's several pitching 100%. Jason Slagle says I'll be good. There are several pitching 100%. Yeah, no doubt, several of them. We won't name names. You know me, I don't do that. But yeah, it's funny. That pulled me off on a track, but I don't even remember where I was going before. But I will say, yeah, MSP's job is to be defensible. And when you talk about layered defense, you start looking at, look at doctors in the history. When doctors first started, hundreds of years ago, when you were practicing medicine, you could saw off a leg or you could put leeches on. Those were pretty much your two things. But as the field of medicine grew, and I'm stealing this from a TED talk that I watched, but as the field of medicine grew, the doctors were still shooting from the hip in a lot of ways. And as new theories came out, and as new medicines came out, and as new ways to treat things came out, as new understandings of disease came out, they just kept shooting from the hip. They had to be that cowboy, right? They had to just be that one that hoped to get enough knowledge from. Well, we're a lot like that, right? In our profession, we're learning those new attack venues. We're starting, as you get into like Jason Slagle or Bryson Medlock, for example, and you know the ways. You know the hundreds of ways people can be attacked. And as you start looking at it, you can never stop it all. And so what I'm saying is that your job is to be able to say, I did what any reasonable person would do.
Yep.
I followed a framework. And guess what? When I follow CIS or NIST or name them, I don't want to be exclusive, right? You have your CSA, there's tons of them. But as you follow that framework, you're saying, hey, other people have been prescriptive in saying this is what I must do to protect myself. I'm going to at least meet that barrier. And guess what? I'm also going to get better and better and better at that. I'm going to show iterative improvement. And so I think that, to your point, why do we need layers? Well, it's because that's what it takes to be efficacious. You have to stop parts of the kill chain. You have to understand the different attack vectors and reduce those, and have good hygiene, have good baselines on your machines, and if you're going to buy Malwarebytes or if you're going to buy whatever you're buying, make sure it's on there and that you can check for it. You have processes to check for it.
Well, I think that the layers just keep getting bigger, right? I remember the day that antivirus was enough.
Right.
Today,
House DNS and proxy and SASE edges and
and you can argue the efficacy or the need for every single one of those. We're all working within our means and budgets. We as a security company, of course, we're vulnerable too. We have people in finance and support and engineering that have never worked at a security company or are security practitioners. And
they're making code.
Yeah. And your humans are part of the vulnerabilities too. I mean, you've heard the story where researcher dropped 10 USBs in a parking lot, and nine of them got plugged in. The last one got run over by a car.
That's pretty good.
So, and anyway, so I just think the problem set is getting harder, and this is why I'm really passionate about just making products easy to use.
Dom says I installed Norton, all good.
Well, Dom, make sure it's the crypto mining is turned on.
Yeah, you got to make sure you're getting your private wallet share, right? Like, I saw that. That was so crazy. And back to your signatures conversation, like, I don't want to bust on Defender because I've been really, really in Defender's camp quite recently, right? I think they're doing some great things, but the most recent bypass of Defender blew my mind. Like, it was just naming a file. Like, just name Mimikatz this and you have nothing. Like, it just blows my mind.
Well, I think Defender's a good product. I think they're really investing in that, but it's also the one we see the most in terms of failures on the consumer side, particularly. I think that was a great example, although all products are vulnerable in some way, shape, or form, which is why I think bug bounties are really important too. I mean, we in particular.
Say it again. One more time. No. One more time. Say it again. What did you just say?
Here, just clip this. All right. Here. All right. Here we go. Bug bounties are really important.
Oh man,
Look,
made my heart happy.
I'd rather pay thousands of dollars to somebody that's ethical to tell me where my product or whatever is broken than that being in the wild and being exploited or used actively for an attack, which is devastating. So
It's a very defensible position, Marcin.
well, do you see the news in what is it? What state is it where they're trying to indict the person that found the social security numbers in the
Oh
HTML?
Jesus, that's my neighbors, my redneck cousins over in Missouri. Yeah,
I'm
you talking
touching that
about
one,
Missouri encryption, the base 64 encoding model that's being they had social security numbers literally in their HTTP source code that was screened like
it's the equivalent of finding a
oh,
like the paperwork on in a parking lot and turning it in and saying that's illegal. What are you doing? I just
yeah. I found this big bag of money in the bank from the bank that's sitting out here. Can I return this? Arrest him, Tim. It's the robber.
yes,
Like,
theft. Just
uh,
doesn't make any sense to me. And this is our policymakers not very technical. This is what you get, and that's the
yeah,
problem.
yeah. Well, and the advisors, the guy's probably not an idiot, right? The advisors had to have given the same. It was this, but yeah, I want to go back though because I'm getting distracted by the comments because people are having fun with it, right? Like, but yeah, Dom said it this way. So I actually am constantly fighting these battles, but I feel like people should have a bug bounty program for a lot of reasons. Mainly, it's that you can do the right thing, right? That you're spending so that you're helping find that before someone enumerates that and attacks your victim slash client partners.
Yep.
But in the same breath, it's also for with those researchers, they often need to have a path to bring something to you, right? And it also secures your NDA. It secures the way that you're going to interact with them. It secures the methodologies they're allowed to use. It secures, like having a good bug bounty program has so many values in a code producing entity, right? I think that's huge. So
100%.
I'm glad you said that. I won't say where I'm fighting that battle right now, but I'm working on that somewhere.
Well, and you've seen this applied the right way where people are put on a pedestal and saying, thank you for finding this. Here's
yeah,
cash. Here's swag. Here's tools to help you develop your career and do it for the good guys, gals. But the flip side is true. There's companies that went out there and sued people for looking into their code.
yeah.
Which
We won't name those names, but
yeah, I just don't get that argument. I especially if done. And look, I've seen researchers do it the wrong way, which is publishing before responsible disclosure and stuff like that. I think given the company time is really important, enough time, but also not too much time where they could.
Yeah. I'll fight on the not too much time side of that, but I understand the nuances of
a 0 day out there in the wild for 2 years, is a big problem, especially in a big platform. So,
and I'd argue 6 months, right? I'd argue it'd be just a few sprints if possible.
Agreed.
I'll tackle two things for Jason. The same people asking you for a few thousand, right, for doing the right thing. So a security researcher coming to you with a VDP or not having a VDP and trying to ask for money, and it seems like you're begging when you're not. You're actually helping them. But they are turning down 10 to 50 times that from the threat actor side in somewhat untraceable currency, more traceable than people think. But and then Dom was being a smart aleck and gave us some Missouri encryption. If you would like, I imagine that'll be funny when you decode it. It's probably base 64, base 32. And then Jason Slagle, I'm going to argue on this one here, and I think it's obviously the side of the fence I sit on, but agreed. Security.text, right, on your well-known, and VDP for the win. But the no NDAs on bounty. I think that there needs to be a fair NDA on bounty. I think there needs to be some degree of protection that exists that allows the parties to work through some of the challenges that exist. And I'm looking at this from the sense that there are so many people with tech debt. There are so many people that have broken systems in their development space that have these things. And I don't want to dissuade people from entering in that space if they can. I'm an advocate for the NDAs, and maybe they're time-based NDAs or until we've released the public. But the point is to make sure that you're wrapping up those things. But Jason, we often see things on the same side. This one I disagree on. But
let's take a hypothetical, vulnerability in the iPhone, right? If it can't be patched fast enough, there's billions of iPhones out there, right? It's making sure the NDA does not impede safety. or
True.
rather the inverse of that, right? Which is
right. It's to
not only
protect in the interim.
yeah,
Right?
if the company patched the problem, but you can't get adoption for whatever reason of that patch, then the vulnerability still exists. Like I'm not saying that's
No, Log4j is already solved. We wrapped that up. Everybody's done.
a perfectly
So,
good example of how long that's going to take to fix,
did you
right?
see the FTC stepped out and said, "Hey, we're going to start
Yeah.
suing if you're"? Yeah, I don't know how much teeth down the road, but wow. And then Don Kirby also said, people want to eat, right? And I think there should be a place where, as a security researcher, you can make a very good living. I think you should be rewarded for the efforts and for the protection. I mean, if you think about it, I think it should be a very viable way to make a living. And then Jason's back to the same point of, right, don't force me to choose between publishing and getting paid. And I think that's what I mean by that, Jason. I'm with you on that too. I think you should get to gain the notoriety and the credit that you deserve for your skills. I think it would be like asking a professional basketball player not to ever show it on camera, right? I think that's terrible. It would not be very effective. And so I agree with you. I just need some, in the sense of NDAs in the interim phase, and in that space. But yeah, I think we should definitely be able to get published.
And so let's make it an ethical dilemma. What if hospitals, for whatever reason, didn't want to apply that patch, and without doing so, they were vulnerable and people could die?
Yeah.
Do you publish? I mean, again, bad hypothetical.
My response back on that, and you're right, it's a rough hypothetical, but if you think back to it, I think that's where those hospitals shouldn't be hospitals. I think we have
agree.
these
The obligation lies. The obligation lies with them. But if you, as an ethical researcher, knew that was the outcome, do you publish?
Yeah. If you actually look at greater good conversation, if you're really looking at it from that perspective, I think, though, you actually see, and I think we're talking about some of the security researcher burnout, some of the same burnout that exists in general in security. And when you have something where that doctor fully would laugh in your face and would not give you the heart transplant if you didn't follow their advice, and yet here they sit in a position where they're not following the advice and they get to plead ignorance. And they're not wrong. They are ignorant. Most of us are. Myself, ignorant. I'm still growing and learning, right? But as we start looking at cybersecurity, most of these players really absolutely... Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, gosh, I just got so excited. Jason and I are going to get into a knockdown, drag out online about this. This is going to be good. We'll play that on a Beard Banter. I think we'll just schedule it. But yeah, the point is, I feel like these doctors and hospitals and general business all need to become more aware of their responsibilities from a cyber perspective. They need to be, especially when the stakes rise, right? If you start talking about physical health, that physical barrier where I could end someone's life. There was a cool researcher that basically inserted fake cancer in an MRI imagery, or it might have been a CT scan. I don't remember exactly the methodology, but they basically would force you to start taking chemo, right? By altering and manipulating, let the doctors kill you themselves as a method of attack. And my point is, we talk about it when someone at the donut shop wants my social, which is stupid. But now when we start getting into doctors and hospital systems that have the ability to end or protect my life, and you start saying, that should be an escalatory set of controls. And here they're probably some of the worst. They've got an ERP from 400 years ago. I swear to God, I was in Costco yesterday and they said, hey, the AS400's down. I swear to God. I was like, wait, you're still using an AS4? Oh, yeah, the green screen over there. I'm like... blew my mind. Anyway,
I mean, there's so much Windows XP still out in the world, for example. That's just a good example of and just to clarify my previous comment, like I think NDAs, and gag orders on vulnerabilities do need expirations. I think everybody's entitled to responsible disclosure and being praised for that, for finding a vulnerability. My only point is weighing the risks and benefits of that here and now, right? Is it a month from now? Can we get everybody patched? I mean, I just think there needs to be a reasonable person's test on some of this stuff. Companies that go out there and say, if you ever release this, we'll sue the hell out of you, are not in my book. So,
Jason, you've never had anybody act like that with you, have you? Oh, and no doubt though, Dom says, ask the Navy how much XP costs them. It's funny. Oh goodness, we're gonna get a good one here, but it's funny. There was a stat, and this was like 7 years ago. If you hooked up a XP machine, public internet, without a firewall in between, I think it was like 3.7 seconds until enumeration and attack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, I can only imagine it's gotten faster.
There's hot topics like that. I mean, a good example of this is RDP attacks in our customer environment. So we have like 50,000 business customers and MSPs, 4 million attacks RDP per day. Just on the endpoints we manage in our ecosystem.
Crazy.
4 million brute force
attacks. Which also
RDP.
says people have RDP open, or there's a threat inside their network, right? Like,
yeah. Easiest way to get ransomware on is brute force RDP, disable whatever antivirus is on there, endpoint protection software is on there, put some ransomware payload, and off we go.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of friends that stand up those honeypots, right? And so they can do the research and see what the attack vectors are. Do you guys have, maybe I'm asking a question I'm not allowed to ask, you can tell me no, but do you guys have honeypot methodologies for some of your threat research?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're trying to emulate as many real machines out there. This is why I'm so bearish on some of these third-party testing labs. Many of them don't actually emulate real-world attacks. And it's just so important when you... Malwarebytes in the early days would absolutely devastatingly flunk third-party testing. Why? Because we don't care that you're executing files from a folder on your desktop. That is not how the real-world threats work. We care that you were on a page, it downloaded a file to the temp folder, it executed from there. And very passionate about this because I think it's a misrepresentation of how products and real threats work. And so, we care how the actual threat is in the machine, on the machine.
Yeah, the context.
Exactly. So, if you run it from the desktop, maybe some of the other vendors have spent time on that. That's just not how, we think about threats. We look at the real world. So the honeypots are set up in such a way that that's the replay that we get. All of the real world infections and how it's going through the machine, where it's exfiltrating, yada, yada, yada.
So I hope I didn't discern that to say if I copy my file to the desktop before moving forward after downloading it, I'm in good shape. I imagine the contextual strings are still there for getting.
We'll still, we because it's important to our customers that we do well with third-party testing, right? Because they've got to show a report that says, hey, boss, I've picked a product that works. So we've had to make some changes to the product over the years, begrudgingly, to make it work in such a way. But
and you're not the first to tell me this. Another major EDR also said, we pulled out of, and you know where it came up. I was looking to consume. I had 20,000 endpoints I was protecting, and so I was going to buy the single largest contract I ever signed. It was like 47,000 a month or something. But yeah, I was looking at it, and I said, this date on this test was 2017. You guys haven't tested, and I was shocked, and I was angered and stupid and ignorant. And, then I got to meet with their C-suite, and they're like explaining it to me, and I was like, oh. You just don't feel like playing their game. And it was the same exact conversation. Like, they were getting denatured specimens, right? They weren't fully capable of executing. They were just looking for those. Yeah. And this particular EDR said, no, we ignore those on purpose because they're not threats. It's not the way we're going to see this. And so it's interesting you echoed that. That's the same.
And to be clear, these testing labs have evolved. They have engaged with partners like us. We're working through these kinds of things. But many years ago, that's what it was. It was right click on the desktop, and and report on how many it found. 900 files in that folder. It detected 820. Therefore, it's 80% effective or 90 percent effective. So, the world's changing, and threat actors are using real world techniques. I think
living off the land tools that are not a file or a signature, right?
I think MITRE does a great job of doing the tests and looking at the visibility. Although I would argue some of the needs for MSPs and SMBs, for example, like we purposely don't show certain items to our customers because their eyes would just glaze over, right? And it's the alerts that matter and are actionable that are most important. So try to build an EDR product for an SMB. That is a challenge, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, especially if you have a lower education level. I don't mean education. I just mean
security maturity,
sophistication, security maturity, ability to understand and discern what they're seeing. What
they're a jack of all trades. They have to do a lot more than just a dedicated security team. In fact, they're overwhelmed in a good way. I mean, they're trying to protect a customer, patch a customer, provide IT services, networking. I mean, they're a jack of all trades. And
they have to be an educator too, right? Yeah. And right now, when you start talking about cybersecurity, and you understand that it's two people playing the game, right? That we have to have their help and their assistance as a client partner, as an MSP, right? And so I think that's part of this challenge too, is that not only do they have to do all those things that are stretching them thin, then they have to go raise the tide with those people and educate those SMBs to say, why are we going to make this more, why are we going to put on passwordless? Why are we going to add these tools? Why are we going to increase what we have? I thought you were already protecting me. That all comes into an education purpose. Now, not only do you have to be a great tactician, you have to be a great operations people, you have to be able to go, you also have to go then be an educator. And that's
I
kind
agree.
of a tough additional piece too.
Many small customers come to us directly, 25 people, 50 people, and want to buy Malwarebytes from us, and
Right.
we send them to a managed service provider
Yeah.
because, again, for the very reason, and always happy to engage with more, but it's a lot of the times it's the facility manager or the office administrator
Oh yeah.
or the CEO themselves. And look, I've made my product as simple as I can, as simple as you can
Right.
make EDR. But an office administrator, like that shouldn't be part-time duty. Go to an MSP, go to an
Right.
MSSP. We'll help you find the right partner because they'll take care of you better than we can.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think that is the point, is that we're starting to see, much more understanding of why you would hire a partner like this. We talk about, do I do my own taxes? No, I'd be a freaking idiot to do
Yeah,
my own
exactly.
taxes,
That's
right?
a
And
great
I have a
analogy.
CPA, but in the same breath, and I'll get on my rant on this, but, MSPs to this point, I just need a sticky note and I can put it on my wall and I'm an MSP now. That's it. That's all it takes. License from the business department, pay my taxes, get an EIN, and I can go do these things, right? Like, the point is there's no barrier to entry either. And so that means that part of the things that bore me, and I think Jason Slagle started in a very similar fashion, like I didn't have any official training. I just started doing computers and said, I want to be a pooter guy, right? And I think the challenge is we have to have, just like doctors evolved, just like CPAs evolved, and they became professional organizations. I think that our industry has to shift over the next few years into a much more professional services model that comes down to having barriers to entry, self-regulation, or otherwise, so that we can actually say, okay, if this person comes and tells you something, the next person down the street may tell you a little different, but it's going to be pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
Between three CPAs, some of them might be a little less scrupulous, but there's a certain barrier to entry, right? There's a certain amount of scrupulousness that must exist, I think.
Yeah, certifications and frameworks are a big part of this, and consistency and best practices.
It's a shame because he uses TurboTax now. That still counts. I'm not going to hold it to you. They make it simple. I just mean you're not going to sit down and use a 1040 and type it out by hand and look at all the schedules and type. Nope, not going to happen. But yeah.
So bizarre that the government knows how much money I owe them, and yet I have to tell them how much I owe them, huh?
Yeah. This is a trust game. We want to see if you're in the circle of trust. We know. We've got it all reported, but you do the math and tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
But it really is, because they'll help you take advantage of all of the tax shelters or methodologies to do the right thing throughout the year, so you can be successful at tax time next year, and those type of things. And so my point though is, just like that in security practitioning, I don't think that's a word, but I'm going to use it. But as a security practitioner, is that we have to start moving towards this. Here's all your gaps. Here's what they are, which means I have some level of knowledge of what those gaps are. And then let's walk towards that. Over the next 6 quarters, let's do these 2 controls every quarter. And, those type of things. And so I think that there needs to be some regulation in our industry from an MSP. And I'd like your thoughts on that as we close this out.
Yeah, I like I said, I think certifications and frameworks are really important. And barrier of entry, I mean, you're right. Anybody can say they're a security practitioner with no, experience and install a couple of, tools.
Yep.
As somebody that's self-taught, I'm torn on the topic. I think there's some really, really smart people out there that, don't have the certifications, don't have knowledge of some of the frameworks, have taught, reverse engineering to themselves.
Yep.
So, I'm torn. I think you certainly need to be, conduct business in a professional way, and whatever that means to you and your customers is important.
And I will say, I think this is a industry that has to be an apprenticeship model. I don't think you can learn this in a way that's just certificates. I don't think
Well, not anymore. I think it's also just so complex now. It
Yep.
used to be that, an antivirus is enough, and now, I mean, how many tools in the stack, how many procedures, processes, et cetera? I mean,
yeah, and I think to the point though, doctors and attorneys already have systems for these type of barrier to entries, right? Like a doctor goes to residency and then they go to, so they're doctors are a lot like an apprenticeship too, because there's some nuance and a lot of science, but some nuance. And so I think that we should have a process to make people organically too.
I may be wrong here, but I don't think we have a shortage of attorneys. And in the world, but we sure as hell have a shortage of security folks.
Yeah,
So
true, true.
maybe there's some wartime training here, that we
I
can.
agree. No, I think so. But I do think that you're trying to solve this right now through the courts and through insurance and subrogation, and other models, and I just don't know that that'll be enough and fast enough. I agree with the wartime kind of theory right now. Like we very much are in this like losing end of that battle from a cybersecurity perspective. I mean,
Yeah.
trillions of dollars a year trickle out of our economy and other economies out there. Oh, I love it. I'm a journeyman cyber human. I'm stealing that, Dom. Like I'm going to use journeyman cyber human after this. So,
What's the equivalent of like a helmet and a rifle for the cybersecurity person? Here's your helmet. Here's your rifle. Get to work. What's the equivalent there?
Yeah, it's basically going to be your EDR and your SIM, I think. Probably.
A security calculator where you can decode stuff. I don't know.
No, decrypt. Remember, let's use the right word. If it's encoded, you decrypt it. That's the way this works.
Fair enough.
And then we'll close this out here in just a few minutes for everybody to be respectful of time. I think there are many people on the other side of the Atlantic that don't have certifications, but they hit hard. Fair.
I mean, Matt, most of our security researchers we found on this message board, people that, I mean, they barely worked a 9 to 5, and had any, so it's, I think you got to get in security very creative on where you find your talent and how you train them and what certifications you need and so on. So,
yeah. Well, and I will say, when I talk to MSPs, they're like, how do I start a security program? How do I find the one guy or gal that already has a passion for it, but has no experience, and drive them towards solving and changing things, right? Like that, I think you make security professionals for sure. I don't think you can do that in the certification process. Dom says, think like electricians. New electricians work with experienced electricians until they become experienced electricians. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that there's a lot of learn it yourself, but what I mean, if you want to, sorry, this is going to take longer to solve than that. But yeah, Miguel says having hands-on matters. Yeah, no doubt, and I agree. I mean, certifications I don't think tell you much. I have a lot of certifications, but in reality, there are gaps in there where I have a certification, but I haven't done a lot of real field work in some of the things, right? And so I agree they don't tell the whole story. I think it should be an apprenticeship type model, or go work for a company and not any experience, a real easy path. There's so many memes on LinkedIn of, hey, new job, I need 5 years of experience in this software, and it's only been out 2 years, right? Like,
well, maybe this is a controversial topic, and most of the CISOs I know are incredibly experienced, but given the shortage of security professionals, many are promoted to the title of CISO before they're ready, and it's kind of the Peter principle. You're promoted until incompetence. There's just so much.
I think it's the Peter principle. Everyone will rise to their own level of incompetence.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, bad analogy, but
no, it's a great one. And Shiva did say, tech moves too quickly for certs. I don't think it means you shouldn't have them, though, right? They show some baselines that exist, but
I like the minimum standard comment, right? I do think there is a minimum standard that is needed, and certification certainly can certify that minimum standard.
Yeah, I think the minimum standards would be frameworks. I mean, I think if I was looking at this, I would find some defensible framework, and my minimum standard would be, can you provide these things? I think the challenge, though, is in the nuance, right? Minimum standard. I have sat around as a surgeon, and I've watched other people, and I know what to do here. But when I go to wield the knife, I don't know that I'm very operationally good at wielding the knife, right? And I think that's some of the challenges we have here, too, is that there's a lot of nuance.
I've seen a few YouTube videos on how to operate, so.
Yeah. CMMC V1, fair. And hard to apprentice when what you learn is old. True story. Gosh, the comments today have been ridiculous. Like I've got like squirrel syndrome here. So Marcin, I'd like to let you close us out. This has been an episode of Beard Banter. I really appreciate everybody's comments. Minimum controls. CISOs are different breed. Gosh, lots of comments. I'm closing out. I'm gonna shut up. Marcin, let's close this out.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt, and to all the MSPs out there, you guys are the real heroes, as I said. Keep your heads up and keep the good fight. You're the ones protecting the world today. So.
Amen. I don't think I could have closed it out better than that. So, Marcin, you rock. This has been really fun. Thank you so much for coming on. I wish I had a fake beard.
I know. You got to ship one to me now.
I'm going to mail fake beards out. I'm going to get a matte beard made.
Maybe we could do an overlay, like a filter.
Yeah, I'm going to do it on it. Somebody said that actually earlier. So thanks so much, everyone. See you.